My name is Joy Toney, resident human and fellow cybersecurity professional. I'm a consultant with Aim for Change LLC. Quick note about them, they're a boutique consultancy headquartered out of Clearwater, Florida, led by our principal master Six Sigma Black Belt. AIM is an acronym that stands for A for assess, I for improve, and M is for measure. So also want to give a shout out to SANS for having me speak on this important topic. Snaps to Stephanie for saying neuro spicy. So thank you, Stephanie. And thank you all for joining my lightning talk. Sashi stressed the importance of self-advocacy during her keynote. Lisa talked about what organizations can do to accommodate. Klaus talked about how the profession should embrace everybody. And Christitha talked about personalizing mentorship because everyone is different. What I want to talk about now is to emphasize allyship for neurodivergent individuals by their colleagues. So what I'm going to talk to you all about today is just the recapping the types of neurodiversity that we've mostly covered in all the other sessions, the 7 types of allyship, and how to create a more supportive work environment for our neurodiverse colleagues so that they know that they belong. This particular graph here is showing us that neurodiverse people make up roughly 20% of the global population, cutting across all demographics. So it doesn't matter what you are culturally, what you are socioeconomically, what you are as far as gender, any of that. If you want to think about it another way, you could say 1 in 5 people are neurodivergent. And so chances are you either know someone, you have someone in your family, or maybe you are one yourself. And on this graphic, it's not an all-inclusive list of neurodiversity. Of course, we've had our speakers talk about different types of neurodiversity throughout the day. I would just like to point out a few other examples. We've already covered ADHD. So a person who has that can bring a high level of intensity and hyperfocus to a task, right? A person with dyslexia can excel at visual thinking and creative problem solving. Katharina talked about that before. Someone with autistic spectrum can finally process details and memorize large amounts of information. And these to me are superpowers, right? So if you think about your cybersecurity management program or your incident management program, your business continuity or disaster recovery efforts, how can you use a superhero on your cybersecurity team that has these superpowers, right? But before I move on to this slide in particular, I just wanted to make sure I pointed out that you can have some individuals with more than one diagnosis. And so you heard Lisa talk earlier about having both autism, ADHD, as well as dyslexia. And then the second thing I wanted to point out is that you could also have an individual who acquires neurodivergence over time or due to a trauma, as opposed to just being born that way. So a great example of that would be post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. But in this side in particular, despite the prevalence of neurodiversity, neurodiverse talent faces barriers and discrimination at work. And we've heard that before from some of our other speakers. That can also include high levels of unemployment, underemployment, pay disparity, and undue discipline. And due to the stigma of neurodivergent individuals, they may experience these additional things like lack of acceptance, inability to fully participate or engage, social exclusion and isolation, bullying or harassment, feeling pressure to pass as normal or be neurotypical, and choose not to disclose their diagnosis. And as a result, they can further experience depression or burnout due to masking and attempting to be neurotypical and just pretend like they're being normal. And they will also suffer a lower quality of life and, have less well-being, or even worse. So what should we do? Well, let's keep in mind that it takes all kinds of minds to execute a strong cybersecurity posture. So cyber criminals already figured that out a long time ago to leverage this philosophy and they're orchestrating their attacks. And so how come we cannot do the same in order to defend our organizations? So we need to embrace the same type of mindset. And how do we do that? Well, I'd say that let's go ahead and create an environment where people feel like they belong. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to have our colleagues to help create that atmosphere of belonging. So let's try to take a page from an author, Karen Catlin, and her research. And she has a quote here where she says that you don't have to be a leader or have the words diversity, inclusion, or belonging in your job description to make a difference. There are everyday actions that we all can take to create more inclusive workspaces. There are myriad ways that we can be allies. So what kind of ally can you be to others? Well, there are 7 types that she talks about in her research. We've got sponsor, champion, amplifier, advocate, upstander, confidant, and scholar. And in the time that we have left, I'll just try to quickly give context to each of these in a neurodiversity context. Okay, so are you a scholar? Are you the type of ally that likes to learn all they can about challenges and prejudices faced, in this case, by a neurodivergent colleague? And would you take the time to educate others about that? Are you a sponsor? Are you the type of ally that openly supports neurodivergent colleagues at work? Would you recommend them for projects and positions because you know of their awesome superpowers? Are you a champion? Are you the type of ally that intentionally creates space for those neurodivergent voices to be heard and their efforts to be seen? Do you give them a platform in meetings, in events, at conferences? Or would you even send them as your representative to speak on their behalf? Are you an amplifier? Are you the type of ally that makes space for those voices to not just be heard, but you also echo and support those voices with affirmations? Are you lending your gravitas? Are you an advocate? Are you the type that brings your neurodivergent colleagues into these highly exclusive circles, or like the band Echo Smith says, the cool kids? Are you an upstander? Are you the type that brings neurodivergent colleagues into are you the type that will say something or do something if someone says something offensive or does something unjust against a neurodivergent person, rather than just being complicit with that behavior? And are you a confidant? Are you the type that creates psychological safety for neurodiverse colleagues to share their challenges, concerns, or even their hopes and aspirations? And can you listen without prejudice, like the late pop culture icon George Michael? Or can you extend your halo like Beyonce, aka the Queen Bee? And you go, okay, Joy, I get this. I get we have different types of allies, but what are some practical things we can do in our workplace? That's a great question. And Sashi, Lisa, Klaus, and Katharina hit all on this before, but I'll just say these few that are on the screen. We can avoid stereotypes. We can implement neurodiversity programs, which could partially also be covered by using ERGs or employee resource groups. We can provide those noise canceling headphones in dark rooms for people, allow flexible work hours and work locations, allow for sufficient response times, and perform inclusive interviews, allow for ADA accommodations. But most importantly, we need to be kind and ask them what type of support do they need. Do not make assumptions, because everyone has different needs. And so if nothing else, let's make sure we learn, we think, we act. We learn about neurodiversity, we think about what we can do to be supportive, and then we act like Nike says, just do it. So I'll just kind of reiterate here. Being a better ally supports the individual, it strengthens the team, it improves the organization. So I'm going to ask you as colleagues, what will you do today to make a difference? And with that, here's my contact information. Thank you for attending my session. I now have a new set of 1,000 best friends. So hit me up in Slack if you have questions. I'll be happy to answer them for you if I can, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn so we can keep the conversation going. Thank you.